As a proud member of the Naked Ape clan, I can confidently say that we're a species that is prone to looking at the past with rose-tinted glasses. Everything seems to be closer to perfection back there, which is a consequence of life being more of a novelty to us compared to the self that is actually engaged in the soul-healing reminiscence process. At some point, the entertainment companies saw the opportunity to profitate off of that specific nature of the human mind by remaking popular pieces of brain-pleasuring media. And the first one that took advantage of said exploit was none other but the movie industry. The practice turned out to be quite profitable, and soon after, other entertainment industries started exercising it too. Among them vultures, there were also the companies that specialized in producing video games, who, after releasing a few member-berry-filled products, they also had their pockets filled with sweet cash. These developments increased the production of the remakes dramatically, and whenever there's an increase in quantity, the quality usually suffers, which made a portion of the audience to see them as pointless cash grabs. But in the year of our Lord, 2019, the trust of the gamers was won over once more, thanks to the sequel of the remake that actually showed us the potential of video game remakes 17 years back. The enormous success of the remake sequel gave the production company enough confidence to immediately initiate production of the threequel, which was a fun enough game, but it wasn't quite as groundbreaking as its predecessors. The stumble with the third remake wasn't quite enough to stop the production company from announcing the remake of the fourth mainline game, which is set to release on March 23rd, 2023. Now that the release day is getting closer, my restlessness has also skyrocketed, so I decided to focus all that manic energy into replaying the beloved original and in the process, to make a fresh new video about it. So, without further stalling, here are my thoughts on Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is an action horror third-person shooter game, featuring the XY chromosome real protagonist of the second game, named Leon S. Kennedy, who after the events of Resident Evil 2, somehow became a US government agent responsible for the safety of the president and also his family. The game opens up with a not that quick synopsis of RE2 and 3's aftermath, that ends with a redundant first title reveal. And then, after a quick fade to black, our eyes are finally blessed with the sight of our dashing young hero's reflection on the window of a Spanish police vehicle. Why is Leon in the situation that he is? Well, the president's daughter got nabbed, and the last time she's seen alive after the napping was in a secluded and rural region in Spain. Leon is sent there to investigate the situation further, and if luck would have it, maybe even bring the girl back to her daddy. Aside from the long but somewhat necessary aftermath synopsis and pointless first title reveal, I think that Resident Evil 4 has a really strong opening chapter. It perfectly mixes suspense with nail-biting action and seasons it with just the right amount of cheesy Leon quips.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
As you slowly move through the story though, the balance gradually breaks up in favor of more action and cheese, with a dash of babysitting. But since the cutscenes and gameplay sections are executed so well, it only adds to the game's overall charm. The cutscene cinematography, for example, is very successful at communicating the mood of the scenes, and the characters' characteristics are characterized very organically through their dialogue, which is voice acted pretty well, with a few odd deliveries here and there.
What? My father?
A huge percentage of the gameplay in Resident Evil 4 consists of killing off infected and mutated fauna, and the number of options that you have for disposing of said fauna is simply astonishing. Leon can use a massive arsenal of projectile spewing weapons, 3 types of grenades, and if you're feeling particularly cold-blooded, you can slash down the enemies across the cheeks with your army knife. The weapons feel amazing to use, and they all have different characteristics that make them useful for different situations. When shot, the enemies react differently depending on which part of their body got blasted, and if you hit them in the head or below the knee, it opens them up for a devastating melee attack, which can be very useful for crowd control. In RE4, you're not the only one capable of handling weaponry. In RE4, the zombie sapiens can do it too. They even set up traps for you, which can be used against them. There is a portion of the baddies whose anti-Leon solution is to toss TNT towards him, and this is not good, because Leon is unfortunately weak to explosions. But you shouldn't lose hope, dear viewer, because with some practice, you can acquire the skill to shoot the explosives mid-air, which, needless to say, feels very satisfying when pulled off. Some of the deanimated enemies leave behind ammunition or a small amount of monies, and the monies can then be traded for goodies with the mysterious chlamydia-infested merchant from Koala Land.
Got something that might interest you.
What exactly can you buy from the merchant, I hear you ask? Well, you can buy better weapons, attachment for said weapons, you can upgrade their stats, get more space for your inventory. You can stock yourself up with more healing weed spray, and you can even get maps that provide you with the locations of hidden treasures. The treasures are collectibles that can be sold to the merchant in exchange for cash, but there's also another type of collectible that's in the form of blue medallions, and when you shoot enough, or all the medallions, you get a free handgun.
Gun. 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 Gun.
It's funny how most modern games still don't know how to implement collectibles in a fun and engaging way, when a game from 2005 has figured it out. They simply need to influence the gameplay directly, by giving us some kind of edge that makes the obstacles that the game presents us with a little easier to deal with, which as a result will organically incentivize the player to actually collect them. Another way you can earn money in RE4 is by playing the fun but challenging target practice minigame hosted by the mysterious merchant himself. By playing the game, you earn figurines of the game characters, and when you fill a row of 6, you get handsomely rewarded in the form of moolah. Since this is one of my most replayed games, the thing that I'm gonna somewhat complain about now is not really a problem anymore. But the first few times that I played the game, the QuickTime events used to aggravate me a lot. They came out of nowhere, and I suffered many deaths because of them. So at the time, I felt that they were kind of unfair. However, I also think that they're implemented in just the right situations, and that they put us in a similar emotional state as the main character is. So yeah, I'm kind of conflicted on that one. Around the midpoint of the game, Leon comes into contact with the kidnapped presidential spawn Ashley, which means that from now on, we need to be responsible for the survival of Leon and Miss Goldilocks too. While the internet seems to have a deep-seated hatred for Ashley, I personally consider her to be a very obedient and, in small occasions, a very helpful young woman with a somewhat irritable call for help. In my opinion, the irritating nature of the call makes you want to save Ashley as soon as possible, in order to prevent potential ear bleeds, which means that the call for help actually accomplishes its core function very effectively. Another reason for Ashley's internet infamy is the claim that she's getting accidentally shot all the time, because she is always in the way between you and the bad boys, but that is not really true either. I'm not saying that the before mentioned accidental murder doesn't happen at all, but it's a way rarer occurrence than you might be led to believe. Ashley always follows Leon behind, and when you start aiming, she freezes in place, so that it's impossible to shoot her. If somehow Ashley finds herself in front of the line of fire, she crouches down to minimize the chances of her getting accidentally deadified by her rescuer. In some areas of the game, it's possible that you'll come across conveniently placed dumpsters, and you can use these dumpsters to hide Ashley from death-inducing enemy attacks. Ashley is also very proficient at understanding the English version of human speech, so if you decide to take advantage of her ability to understand her native tongue, you can command her to stop following you.
Wait.
This ability can be very effective in keeping Ashley from harm's way, but only if used correctly though. Like every respectable horror game, RE4 likes to tease our brains with puzzles, and thank God, almost all puzzles in this input-based video entertainment are very easy to solve. I personally like that, because I'm a lifelong sufferer of dumb brain. Plus, I think that in a tense action game like RE4, complex puzzles can negatively affect its pacing. Resident Evil 4 is one of the most influential video games of all time, but despite that, its age is slowly starting to show in some areas. The most evident signs of its aging are the game's usage of sluggish tank controls and the fact that you first have to aim in order to be able to reload. I personally don't mind either of these design decisions, but I think that most players will see them as being needlessly awkward. Something that older games almost always had over the modern ones is the huge amount of extra stuff that you unlock after beating them. In RE4's case, you unlock extra costumes, special weapons, 2 separate ADA campaigns, and you also unlock this game's version of the Mercenaries mode. This version of the mode will serve as the blueprint for every of its subsequent iterations in this franchise, which is evidence enough of its brilliance. The majority of the footage in this video is captured from the 2014 PC port of the game, enhanced with the RE4 HD Project mod. The mod is basically the best remaster of a game that I've ever seen. It updates all low quality textures with ones of the HD variety. It also upscales the pre-rendered videos, makes better shadow maps, adds new shadow projections, and on top of that, it also fixes broken graphical effects. I honestly think that this is the best way to experience the game these days. However, the original GameCube version was also considered to be quite a looker in its time. It simulated depth of field during cutscenes, made use of specular maps, it used 2D animated sprites to create atmospheric effects like fog, volumetric lights, and lens flares, and it even tried to mimic real-time lighting in some areas by projecting sprites onto the player model. All these effects are pretty cool, but the effect that impressed me the most was the water simulation. There's nothing really to say about it, just look at the damn thing. It looks better than the water effects in most modern video games. The effects, combined with the well-designed environment and the aesthetically pleasing over-the-shoulder camera view, made RE4 one of the most visually captivating games of its generation. And I don't think I'm wrong by saying that it's probably the progenitor of the modern AAA game look. So yeah, the game looks great, plays great, and the story is really fun.
We're in trouble.
I think I'm starting to see why people love it so much. But do you know who also noticed the people's love of the game?
Capcom.
They are giving us a remake soon, and I have to admit, it looks really sexy. Thank you guys for watching, and if I manage to make another video, I hope I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day!